see what a German might hear.
Okay.
Let's go really close. Oh, sorry.
Dem Schlaf. In Nächten, in denen ich schmerzend allein da liege, verstehe ich den Mann, dessen Gedichte nicht genug waren, um die Wunden der Unzufriedenheit wegzuätzen. Das offene Wasser am Heck eines Dampfboots wählend, ebenso gut wie jede Brücke oder städtische Betonkante, anstatt noch einen Tag des Kampfes. Von etwas umschlossen zu sein, sei es Wasser oder einfach Schlaf. Das ist es, wonach ich mich sehne. Doch fehlt uns beiden je ein Ton dieser schleierhaften Anerkennung, die uns mit dem Namen, den wir ihr geben, verbarrikadiert auf einer leeren Straße zurücklässt. Komm, Morpheus Erlösung, mit Lethes Droge, dass ich wiedergeboren sein mag, den Kampf vergessend, damit ich die Kraft habe, ihn wieder aufzunehmen, so wie Helios den Streitwagen in Gang setzt, als ob es das erste Mal wäre, dass Pferde flögen.
So how was that experience to take something from English and make it into this?
Well, for me it was
Yeah.
a very good experience because it turned me into a poet instantaneously.
Okay.
This is my first real poem. Thank you,
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And I'm looking at your paper there. They can't see all the things you've crossed out because it is a draft. There are always questions you have to ask. Is that the right word? Is that the right phrase? Do I have to redo it? Can you talk about some of those problem spots?
Yes, I think one of the things already was the title, I mean, To Sleep, which I think we already had a discussion, the three of us, via email. It could be interpreted as the verb to sleep in the infinitive, or it could be an address to sleep, and so you kind of have to make, I guess, a judgment call or be informed by the original poet. How is this to be read or to be considered? With verb forms in general, then also in terms of the melody, where do you put a word? Sometimes, of course, in the sentence structures work differently in different languages. So I have a word at the end of a line that Stan had at the beginning of his line that just needs to go there because of how German works, or then ambiguities that with prepositions, which are always tricky. You have different ways of expressing something using prepositions. What does it sound like? What's the sound of this? And where's my? I also had a. This is not my first version that was crossed out. There were multiple versions, and they all had some things that I crossed out, etc. Then also in German you add the element of having nouns with different genders, so feminine genders, masculine gender, or neuter gender, so you have to decide what's this noun that works with this context. And so yeah, I think it was a challenge, but in a good challenge. And I would almost say what you just said, it's not really a finished thing, but you could keep coming back and reading something different into it. Or
one of the things that came up in our email exchange, and I hope I don't steal this away from Mahan, because I think it was Nadia who actually said it. She said, "In my version of the poem," and I said, "Well, that's exactly right. It's not the same poem. It's only a version of the poem. Every time you change it from one culture, from one language into another one, you really have to recast it in a way that makes it a new entity." And so I would say, yes, you are a poet now because of this translation, and you have this wonderful poem to start your next collection with.
isn't that good?
Well, no, because you're going to say translated by at the top. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I think only something that also Mahan, you brought up, for instance, in the original Stan, you had key, the word key. So, and in German there would be also, I guess, just like in Spanish, any number of interpreting key, as in a key you use in a door, a key for a tone of music, but also other ways that might change. I mean, even in English we have that ambiguity too. So, but then you add different components to that. Yeah.
And since you bring us up, Stan, I mentioned it in 19th century Spain. It was quite common for authors to move to France for their education, and then translate some works into Spanish, come back and claim them as their own, and publish them locally. So,
Okay. I'm glad we're not in the 19th century.
Yes, sir. I titled it Dormir, which is a whole question in of itself, and we'll talk about it a little bit. En las noches cuando me acuesto dolorosamente solo, entiendo al hombre cuya poesía no podía cauterizar las incisiones de la desafección. El que escogió el agua abierta de la popa de un barco de vapor, tan buena como cualquier puente o cornisa urbana de cemento, a un día más de luchar. Ser tragado por algo, sea agua o un sueño sencillo, es lo que anhelo. Pero a nosotros nos falta algo clave de esta aprobación oscura que, por el nombre que lo damos, nos deja atrapados en una calle vacía. Ven, liberación morfea, con la droga del éter, para que yo me renazca desmemoriado de la lucha, para que tenga la fuerza para tomarla de nuevo, como inicia Helio la cuadriga, como si fuera la primera vez que volaran los caballos. And I think it has a wonderful rhythm in English that I struggled to keep in Spanish. When you're adding in, in a different structure, I feel a little bit better looking at the German, because I think there were probably more words to have to employ to say the same thing. But as you alluded to with Dormir, I had trouble with that title. And do I say a dormir, to go to sleep? Do I say el dormir, the act of sleeping? Do I say el sueño, like your dreams, your sleep? And I think I even made a note here to go back to a dormir, but I stuck with dormir because you mentioned that it was almost a personification of sleep, and dormir is the infinitive for to sleep in Spanish. Can function as a noun, it can function as a command, and so I left it that way. Although there's also the option of making it reflexive, dormirse, which would be to put oneself to sleep as opposed to active. So there were a lot of nuances, and I think that what was eye-opening to me were all these things that I take for granted in reading something in its original language, that when you're working on a translation, you have to, you can't take them for granted anymore. You're like, oh, I thought I knew exactly what that meant, but now that I have to parse it between 3 synonyms, which one do I choose?
Right.
When it means all of those in English, and as you say, clave, the key, it was line 11 in Stan's original, but both of us are 1 key short, and I originally had the word for a llave, like a key for a door, and I ended up going with clave, which is also, it's both the musical key, but also like something essential, and I thought that functioned a little bit better than just the llave, the key for a door. Again, one of those words that holds polysemous in English, and I had to pick my synonyms in Spanish for what fit in there. It sounds like you did as well. But, which one did you end up choosing?
The one that's related to sound as well.
To sound as well. Yeah.
Which made also sense in conjunction with the name and all of those.
Peek into the microphone.
Yes.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, a couple other problem places that I had were kind of the grammatical structure in Spanish, specifically line 5. There were 2 things on line 5 that I really had to think about. Stan's line is choosing open water off a steamship's stern, which is really concise. I really like the way that reads. And so I started in Spanish using the, in Spanish they're combined, so pardon me if I use the wrong English grammatical term, which I forget at the moment. The present participle, I started with escogiendo, just like choosing, but that's a very anglicized way of expressing it, and while I like the way it sounds better to my English ears, even in Spanish, I ended up going with a relative pronoun. So instead of saying choosing in Spanish, it literally said, it goes back to say he who chose the open water. And I didn't like the way that sounded as much to me necessarily, but I thought it was better grammatically in Spanish. It sounded more natural in Spanish. But then the end of the sentence is the open water of a steamship's stern. We've got el agua abierta de la popa, which is the stern, de un barco de vapor. So I've got 3 prepositions in there. De la popa, de un barco de vapor. And I just couldn't figure out a way to avoid that repetition of de there, which may work, but it's not in the original. And so it would be a problem I still would like to go back and look at. But it says it is a translation, and it says what it originally says, but the structure of Spanish I felt was limiting in that way, I guess, to express what you were trying to say.
Right. One of the things, and going back to the idea of a translation versus a version of the poem, if we had not done it this way, if you came across this and you said, I really want to create this as a Spanish poem now, not as an exercise, but as a way to embody the spirit of the poem, but not necessarily detail to every part of speech. Do you think you would maybe change some of the choices? Because you talked about that long line with all of the prepositional phrases. Could you substitute a different image, maybe, that would get at it, that would give you a freer sense of the language as opposed to that?
Yeah, and one of the things that I was really dissatisfied with was just the term for steamship in Spanish. Like steamship is a one word, like in Spanish it's un barco de vapor. It's 4 letters really. Which that's, you know, if I could choose a different word there that was more concise, I would do that. But, you know, I just don't like the way that comes across in Spanish. But there are other places where, you know, I first began to read poetry in Spanish. Like Spanish was the language that opened the world of literature to me, and where I really liked the rhythm.